Looking back on my life now that I'm in my mid-60s, it's easy to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some of the choices I made were good, some were bad, and some downright reckless. Some of my decisions had consequences, while others didn't. Part of my behavior was inherited, and part of my behavior was learned. I realize and accept I'm psychologically skewed, and the primary reason is deeply rooted in my dysfunctional childhood. Raised by my adopted mother and father, an alcoholic who didn't have the capability to love or care for a child, in an environment devoid of nurturing, the situations I experienced in my developmental years impacted me throughout my entire life and left me constantly searching for my identity. The lack of affection I experienced during childhood was compounded by the constant arguing that occurred between my adopted parents on a daily basis, as well as my adopted father's increasing lack of interest as I got older. The heavy burden of childhood I carried was hidden away for decades and never discussed with family or close friends. During my journey from troubled adolescent to outlaw biker, the signs of dysfunctionality were plain to see as I traveled the road of life, but I was deliberately oblivious. After I met my biological father in 1994 and got to know him well, I realized he was also psychologically skewed from a dysfunctional childhood. His emotional capabilities were also compromised, leaving him self-centered and unable to love or care for another human being. Over the years, I've often wondered about the origins of my dysfunctionality. Is the primary cause of my psychologically skewed mind the result of inherited behavior, learned behavior, or a combination of both? Another unusual aspect of my life, until I was 44 years old, was the type of women I was attracted to and enjoyed being with, for almost all of them had a common trait. They suffered some type of abuse during their childhood and/or had low self-esteem. Because I was around strip joints on a daily basis, as well as involved in the management and ownership of the dance halls, a lot of these women were strippers. I never realized this characteristic until my daughter's therapist pointed it out one day in 1998. She said, "It's obvious that you have dated the same type of female over and over again your entire life. You must change the selection pool from which you choose your women, or you'll never have a healthy relationship." Although it took a few days for that conversation to sink in, I soon realized she was correct. It was a revelation that caused me to reconsider the appealing attributes of the females I dated in the future. Did I date strippers, women who had suffered childhood abuse, and women that had low self-esteem because of my psychologically skewed mind? And if so, was it the result of inherited behavior, learned behavior, or a combination of both? The primary reason I've sought acceptance my entire life has eluded me. Have I sought acceptance because I never had a positive male role model during childhood, and my adopted father repeatedly told me I'd never amount to anything? Or maybe it was the result of being abandoned by my birth mother the day I was born and spending the first 6 months of my life in an orphanage. You are about to embark on a strange trip into a world you couldn't possibly imagine. But before you dive into my chronicles, please be advised that it's my intention to provide you with a more accurate portrayal of a typical motorcycle club member than what you're accustomed to. I hope my life experiences will bring you a much clearer perception as to what an outlaw biker really is, and why he or she is an outlaw biker. The majority of the world's motorcycle club members are legitimate hard-working men that rarely cause anyone problems. Contrary to the meth-addicted, violence-prone image regularly portrayed by the media, most of today's outlaw bikers are productive, contributing members of society that love motorcycles and the lifestyle, and the only thing they're guilty of is having too much fun on the weekends. While exploring my tumultuous world, you'll take an extraordinary journey into the hostile environment where I lived for almost 30 years as a member of, or closely associated with, major outlaw motorcycle clubs worldwide. The majority of the time I was gainfully employed, but simultaneously lived most days as if every day was a holiday. Living that way was mandatory in the traditional biker lifestyle I maintained. As a full-patched member and national officer, first with the Rogues Motorcycle Club, and then with the Bandidos Motorcycle Club, I regularly traveled the world. Along the way, I authored books about the outlaw biker lifestyle, produced television shows that have been seen all over the world, spent time in prison, and bought, sold, built, and repaired hundreds of Harleys. During my life, I also managed a rock band, owned a construction management company, produced, recorded, and manufactured 4 record albums of songs I wrote, bought, sold, and flipped residential real estate properties, raised a beautiful daughter, and married the most beautiful woman I've ever known, my conquistadora. This is my story, written in my own words over the last 18 years. I apologize in advance if you find the writing style crude or immature, but please understand I'm an outlaw biker, not a literary master who has benefited from creative writing or journalism classes at university. I truly hope that you enjoy the journey while you read both volumes of Searching for My Identity. Volume 1 of my memoir, From the 60s to January of 2001, is the chronological evolution of a troubled adolescent to outlaw biker. Volume 2, From January of 2001 to December of 2020, is the chronological evolution of an outlaw biker on the road to redemption. Don't ever forget you're the master of your destiny, always believe in yourself, and ride safe.